Hey guys, Dane here, Adaptive Exercise and Rehab, coming back with another video on what I've learned after 3,000 adaptive exercise sessions. Alright, so yeah, to kind of go over what this video is going to be about, it's going to be going over what I've learned over my entire kind of career as an adaptive exercise specialist, and what I've learned after 3,000 sessions. I just had my 3,000th session about 2 weeks ago. And from my understanding, I don't know if any other trainer at New Ability or the SCI Recovery Project has gotten to that point. I don't think that anybody's ever tracked this before, but it's something that I was telling people I was at 4,000 sessions, so I figured I might as well actually check what I was at. But yeah, so a few things that I guess to summarize what I've learned over my 4 years and 3,000 sessions here, kind of boils down into 3 different points, if I can kind of summarize them. The first one is bring value. And bringing value, basically, that it's pretty ambiguous, I understand. But that's kind of going to come from any type of perspective you're coming from, is any type of business you're coming from. But so with that being said, we have clients who have a massive span of function. So with myself as an adaptive exercise specialist, I have to adapt my skill set to what is going to meet that client where they're at. So say, for example, I have somebody with a very high level cervical injury. It's not like I'm going to try to get them walking and try to get them up on certain aspects if that is not safe and healthy for me to do so. Same thing if you know, I have a TBI or something of the sort like that, somebody who has more able function. I'm not going to try to, work them just in a seated position. I'm going to try to meet them where they're at and kind of bring value to what they have. Within that, though, bringing value comes in a lot of different forms. So we can work on different body positions. So tall kneeling, half kneeling, long sit, standing, goodness gracious, kneeling positions in terms of a lunge, things like that, where we're offsetting their body, getting them prone, supine, side lying, positions where they're not necessarily comfortable or able to do at their own home or at different facilities across the board. Additionally, within bringing value to you, and something that I've learned within here, and we have close to $1 million facility now too, so we have a lot of equipment that's at our disposal. But it's using everything that you do have at your disposal to try to accommodate for different dysfunctional movement patterns that your client may be presenting with. So within there, you want to be able to try to, if somebody has a high level injury with their cervical spine and then their wrist flexors and extensors are not working and they're consistently in a kind of a poor position, mechanically speaking, for their wrist, strap their wrist down or find somebody to spot their wrist or find some way that you can spot their wrist. Bring value in that so that we can work through a movement pattern where we're working on the proximal aspect of their shoulder girdle for a push motion without having the distal aspect of their body being their hand, wrist, and elbow being the problem factor. So we want to try to solve that for them as they can and bring value in that area. Number 2 is no need to reinvent the wheel. Start with the basics and go from there. With able-bodied exercise, there's a few ways to do a lat pull down. There's a few ways to do a bicep curl. There's always a few variations here and there, but same thing goes for adaptive exercise. There's a few ways to do a sit to stand. There's a few ways to do a lower back extension or a deadlift in an adaptive method. There's a few ways to do a lat pull down as well too. There's just different settings and different methodologies that you can go about doing that. So starting with the basics and not needing to reinvent the wheel. I've seen myself do this, and I've seen some coworkers do this in the past, where we're throwing a lot of things together to try to make it look cool, but the functional approach is still the same as one machine that we have or one aspect of that. There may be small nuanced differences that are within that machine or within that setup that may be slightly different, slightly off, slightly more valuable. But overall, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's no need to put your body under that much stress and your mind for that matter too, if you're just going to work on one aspect of it too. And also too, within that, you don't need to continue to bring new stuff to the game each time too. I go into a workout and I'm doing a back workout, I'm going to row, I'm going to get my hands overhead, I'm going to do some low supination stuff. There's no need to do stuff outside of that. You can get creative, and you should get creative, but within a range that is acceptable and not too outside of the lines. And I'm absolutely one to go outside of the lines on a pretty regular basis. but that's because I feel the need to throw something new at my clients on a regular basis then too. And that has its ups and its downs. So starting off, you want to make sure you're really just kind of starting with the basics. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And lastly, just in terms of advice I've kind of summarized over the years, is always start off with a plan. Your clients basically will hop onto the table or transfer on over and say, so what's the plan for today? What do you want to do? And if you don't actually have a plan, good Lord, you are in a bad spot to start. So starting off with, all right, well, I want to get you standing. I usually start with some objective measures. So, all right, I want to get you standing. I want to do some presses. I want to do some pulls. I want to get your hands over your head. And I think I want to do maybe some lymphatic drainage at the end. Your ankles are seeming a little more kind of swollen than usual. And with that, they basically say, okay, cool, sounds like a good plan. Or they say, hey, do you think we could work on my hands at some point in time? Or do you think we could do some electro-stim on my back or some postural support or something of the sort like that? So that gives you a better idea of going into a session. You want to start off with a plan of here's what I want to do if you're going to let me just kind of roll free. But I want to get that feedback right now. Okay, does that sound okay? What areas am I missing right now? What areas do you want to kind of include in that? I might have to take some stuff out just for time purposes, but we'll see if I can kind of get as efficient as I possibly can and do kind of multi-layered approach behind things. But yeah, so bringing value to the session in different positions, different mechanisms, goodness gracious, different ways of accommodating different dysfunctions. Don't reinvent the wheel. Start with the basics and go from there. And then third is going to be always start off with a plan, and then from there, kind of see where the session lets you go.